Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Ireland's Prime Minister Leo Varadkar says Britain must soon address the key issue of the status of the Irish border after Brexit because the clock is ticking. He says he doesn't want economic barriers between Britain and Ireland and is calling for unique solutions to preserve links between the two countries. After Brexit, Ireland will have the EU's only land border with the UK. Our Ireland correspondent Chris Buckler has more.
Leo Varadkar crossed the Irish border for the first time as Ireland's Prime Minister to set out his concerns about what could happen to it after Brexit. He arrived in Belfast having upset unionists with recent comments about Brexiteers. But inside Queen's University today, the new Taoiseach was keen to talk about solutions, not divisions.
At a time when Brexit threatens to drive a wedge between North and South, between Britain and Ireland, we need to build more bridges and fewer borders.
He is a Taoiseach of a new generation. The referendum over the Good Friday Peace Agreement marked the first time he was eligible to vote. He said the challenge of this generation is Brexit. And again he challenged those he called the Brexiteers to come up with proposals to ease the problems posed by new borders.
They have already had 14 months to do so, which should have been ample time to come up with detailed proposals. But if they cannot, and I believe they cannot, then we can start to talk meaningfully about solutions that might work for all of us. For example, if the United Kingdom doesn't want to stay in the customs union, perhaps there can be an EU-UK customs union instead.
But everything depends on the deal. And if it was to end up being a so-called hard Brexit, no one is sure how trade and movement could be monitored along a border that has scores of open roads. When people talk about the Irish border of the past, they tend to refer to the years of the Troubles when huge security was needed along these roads. That's not the case anymore. This is actually the dividing line between the countries, not that you'd notice.
There's going to be some form of border because the UK will not want people sort of coming from, into Ireland, to the south of Ireland, and using that as their sort of their gateway into the UK itself.
I never seen before, I'm too young, I didn't see the border, but I can imagine that it won't be good.
But there are some unionists in Northern Ireland who feel the Taoiseach is interfering and even scaremongering.
There is no binary solutions in these things, and actually pejorative language like hard Brexiteers doesn't really work for anybody.
On this shared island, Leo Varadkar knows there are many shared interests. A Brexit deal that's good for the UK is likely to be important on both sides of this border. Chris Buckler, BBC News, Belfast.
Well, our political correspondent, Alex Forsyth, is at Westminster for us this evening. Alex, any response from the government to what the Taoiseach's been saying today?
Well, I think there is recognition that Brexit could have a significant impact on Ireland because of its unique circumstances. It will have the only land border between the UK and the EU. And there was a sense of frustration from the Irish Prime Minister today at what he sees as a lack of progress on this issue. Now, UK government sources say they have been working on this for a year. They say they've had constructive discussions with the European Union, and they point out that there is broad consensus about what everyone wants to achieve, and that is frictionless trade and no hard border. But what is not clear is how exactly to get there. We had some suggestions from the Irish Prime Minister, perhaps a bespoke customs deal, but that would cause concern among some Brexiteers worried about how that might affect the UK's ability to go off and do trade deals with other countries. What this shows, like in so much of these Brexit talks, is how the UK government is having to balance competing views and demands here in Westminster, in Ireland, and with 26 other European Union countries. The government says this issue is a priority, but just putting something at the top of the list doesn't make it any easier to resolve.
OK, Alex, thank you for that. Alex Forsyth there at Westminster.
One of the biggest challenges of Brexit was brought into sharp focus today in an uncompromising speech by Ireland's new Prime Minister. On a visit to Belfast, Leo Varadkar issued a stark warning over the need to resolve the question over Northern Ireland's border with the south, stressing it was not Ireland's responsibility to come up with a solution.
If the new Irish Prime Minister has spotted a problem on the horizon, well, everyone in Northern Ireland can see it. Nothing delayed him crossing the border on his first official visit to Belfast as Taoiseach, but Brexit might in future. And today he warned time's running out to find a solution.
What I'm challenging the hard Brexiteers to do, what I'm asking those people who want to leave the customs union, want to leave the single market, I'm asking them after 14 months, and it is 14 months now since the referendum, to put down in paper and detail how they think it's possible to have some sort of border that doesn't impact very seriously on normal life for people in businesses and farms across Ireland and across Britain. And if they can't come up with those solutions, well, maybe they might talk about mine, because the ones I put forward I think are workable.
His suggestion is for Britain to stay in the customs union and single market so people and goods can continue to cross this border with no controls. Today, the UK government agreed that nobody wants a return to a hard border with checkpoints seen during the Troubles. There has been a suggestion from British ministers of a digital border, free-flowing but monitored by cameras, while others in Dublin have talked about a sea border with goods and people checked at ports around the island. Today, Northern Ireland's parties discussed those options with the Taoiseach.
It was a bit of a rough meeting.
And the DUP weren't entirely joking. Their visitor urged politicians to form an executive and come together over Brexit, but his ideas only drove them apart.
There is no binary solutions in these things, and actually pejorative language like hard Brexiteers doesn't really work for anybody.
The DUP are very disrespectful about the vote in the north. The majority of people here, and that'll be said loud and clear, the majority of people here voted against Brexit.
This former Northern Ireland secretary can't see an agreement before October, when EU negotiations are supposed to move on to trade.
I haven't seen any progress made. Certainly no clue from the British government yet as to what they think a practical solution to this Irish border conundrum is. And I don't see one unless Northern Ireland, at a very minimum, stays in the customs union.
As Ireland's first gay Prime Minister, tomorrow the Taoiseach will join Pride celebrations in Belfast, a hint for the North to catch up on equal rights. He says he's come to build bridges, not borders, but the dividing lines are pretty clear. Paul Brand, News at 10.